Welcome to The Pure Perspective, the podcast where we explore the many pathways to recovery. I'm your host, Kyle Van Blerkum, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. At The Pure Perspective, we're on a mission to shine light onto the journey of healing, resilience, and hope. Each episode, we bring you powerful stories of individuals who have faced substance use and mental health challenges head-on, along with insights from trained professionals and family members offering unwavering support. Whether you're on your own path to recovery or seeking to understand the struggles and triumphs of others, you're in the right place. This podcast is a safe space for inspiration, connection, and growth. Get ready for candid conversations, heartfelt stories, and valuable insights right here on The Pure Perspective.
Perfect. So my name is Micah Meline. I guess I'm just going to share a little bit of my story. I always like to tell this is, my story may not line up exactly with yours, but I just encourage people to listen through some of the trials that I've been through and just to bring some hope from that. For me, I was born in South Korea, and my birth mom, she was 14 years old. So, being 14, that's extremely young to have a child, and at that point of her life, she just realized that she wasn't able to do it. So after I was born, she abandoned me at the hospital. They took me in and they put me into an orphanage. So the first 6 months of my life, I guess you could truly say I didn't have a family, And then I was adopted to a family in Minnesota, and that family was an amazing family. They always pushed me to have like these big dreams and goals, You can achieve anything, and I guess I grew up in the early 90s, and for me it was I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player.
Nice.
Like watching the Twins and seeing Kirby Puckett, like that was my hero.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to be like Kirby. And the thing I didn't realize is, one, I sucked at baseball. And then two, when you do drugs, it takes away your dreams. First couple years of my life, I didn't see myself as different. Thought I was a normal kid, ran around the neighborhoods and just got on my knees, got in a little mischief, and
Sure.
that's normal.
Right.
But the day I realized everything was different, it was kindergarten, and I remember sitting there watching the other kids' parents come in and thinking, he looks like his dad. She looks like her mom. That's what real families are supposed to look like. And then my mom walked in, and my mom, she's white, and she has red hair, and as you can tell, I have neither of those. And
Right.
as she was walking towards me, that was the first time I felt rejection. And that's why I always tell people, my story may not be the same as yours, but I'm sure everybody that's alive has felt rejection at some point. And that feeling is extremely intense as an adult, but being 5 years old, now I feel like I don't belong with my family.
Right.
And I never told anybody about this, It created just that feeling of, where am I supposed to be? Going to family holidays, seeing my cousins there, looking like their parents, laughing, joking around, and I guess I just always felt like the black sheep of the family. It's like they loved me. They never did anything to make me feel out of place. But I guess just deep down, that was what my truth became, was
Right.
I don't belong here. A couple of years went on, and, it eventually got to the point where I wouldn't even look in the mirror. Because, most people can look in the mirror and say, oh, that's my dad's ears, or that's my mom's nose. I look in the mirror and it's just blank. You know, I look in the mirror and think, wonder what my dad's ears looked like. I wonder what my mom's nose looked like. And I never asked those questions because I guess in my head I thought, if I ask those questions, if I show interest in finding out who I look like, you know, how would my parents feel? Because I have amazing parents, but
Right.
I just didn't want to hurt them. But I think by not saying anything, you know, my parents always wanted it to feel like I was just their family, you know. But I think it was kind of that unwritten thing that you're not different. But I kind of wish we could celebrate that I was different. The years went on, and eventually I got tired of feeling this way.
Sure.
I found older friends, and I don't know about you, but older friends, they
Right.
did older things.
Right,
You know,
right.
I'm 9 years old hanging out with kids that are 16, 17, and now we're out playing ball one day, and after the game we're in the dugout behind my house, and I remember my friend pulled out a pack of Newport 100s.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought, man, they're smoking.
Right.
Maybe if I smoke a cigarette, you know, they'll accept me.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't think that cigarette would change my life, but it did, because now I'm doing things just to fit in. 9 years old, smoking cigarettes. 10, now they're passing around the blunts, and
Yep.
I thought, man, you know, maybe I'll smoke the blunt too, because I'm already smoking, and
Right.
back then weed, of course, was a little different.
Right.
You know, sticks, stems, seeds.
Right, right.
You could smoke it and it wouldn't really, you know, get you super high, so didn't
Still
really
function a little bit.
Yeah, you know, didn't think it was necessarily a bad thing, but
Right.
now a couple years of smoking and now it's not doing the trick. So then my friend, you know, one day we were at a party and he brought over some cocaine, and I thought, they're sniffing coke, maybe I'll sniff some too. So here I am, 14, sniffing coke, and you know, I remember thinking, like, why am I doing this?
Right.
But then I was like, you know what? It's whatever.
Yeah.
It's not hurting my life. And a couple weeks later, a friend, he brought over something that eventually would become my drug of choice, and that was meth. You know, I sniffed a line of meth, and I just felt like Superman. Can't tell me nothing. In doing so, you know, now I'm staying up multiple days, started not eating, and when I'd go to school, I'd get paranoid that, you know, everybody knows.
Right.
Everybody knows I'm high, and teachers are the feds, and
Right.
all kinds of crazy thoughts started happening. I got kicked out of a couple high schools, and, you know, after going through multiple high schools, then I went to the ALCs, and, you know, at the ALCs, it's basically you can do whatever you want there.
Yep.
Teachers are like, you don't have to stay here, you can leave. It's easier to deal with someone there, you know.
Right,
Just
right.
leave.
Yeah.
So when I found out that all you had to do is sign out, now I'm leaving school every day.
Right.
You know, in trouble for truancy, and after going through multiple high schools, I went to treatment a couple times in between then. Even went to a sober school called Peace Academy in Minneapolis. So
Okay.
a nationally known sober high school, but I just, you know, I wasn't ready for that yet.
Right.
And I met this girl. We were 16 when we started dating, 17, thought we were in love, and, you know, it's that puppy dog, you don't know what love is, so
Right.
she ended up getting pregnant. And at that point, that's when life had to change, you know. At that point in my life, you know, I was young, partied, and I was selling drugs, thought I had this great life going selling drugs, and now everything's changing. She moved to Canada,
Oh, wow.
and like her mom lived there, so we moved there trying to be a successful young parents, which we had no business in knowing what that meant. And for her, she quit doing drugs, or she never really did drugs. She partied, you know, smoked weed occasionally with me, but you know, she became responsible. And I moved to Canada, and it's totally different than Minnesota. You know?
Really?
Canada, it's like people are nice for no reason. But in Canada, you only have to be 18 to drink.
Oh.
And drinking was never really something I enjoyed. Every time I drank, bad things happen, get drunk, blackout, get sick. Wasn't fun for me. So
Yeah.
didn't really do that a lot. And when I got to Canada, now my drug addiction turned into alcohol.
Oh, sure.
You know, first started out, maybe I'll just go to the bar after, you know, have a drink or two, and then it, you know, earlier in the day would go. But in Canada, all the bars have slot machines in there.
Oh, sure.
And for me, gambling was always a problem. So now I'm drinking all the time, I'm gambling all the time, and money is just disappearing. You know, it's I'm spending money more than I saved, and all I could think about is I need to get back to Minnesota because I know how to make money. So I created this lie. Basically, I sold my daughter's mom a dream. Oh, I'll go home, I'll make some money, and, you know, I got this job lined up, and, you know, those typical things, and there ain't never no job lined up. And the day I left Canada, I remember I packed my car up, gave my daughter and her mom a hug and a kiss, and, you know, I said bye, and as I was driving away, I was looking in the mirror, and I just seen her at the end of the driveway crying with my daughter, and it's almost like, you know, I knew my life was going to be different, but I didn't know exactly how. And as I was driving home, I just kept thinking, you know, as long as you don't do meth, everything will be okay, you know. And driving home, I'm calling all my buddies, you know, hey bro, I'm on my way home, and they're excited, you know, because back then they called me Meech on his way home. They're gonna go party, go to a casino. And the day I got home to Minnesota, I didn't do meth, but I did ecstasy, you know, and back then pills are different than they are nowadays, and instantly I was addicted to ecstasy, you know, and for me, I can't just do drugs, I had to sell them. So I started picking up pills, and one day I was, I think it was about a month or two after I got home, I was on my way to sell 100 of them, and I'm driving in Eden Prairie, and this car was like super close to me, so I brake checked them. Well, 2 seconds later, whoop, whoop, it's the police. And I pulled over on this ramp on Valley View Road in 494. A cop comes up to the window, and he's like, I smell weed, get out the car. I had 100 pills in my pocket.
Yeah.
I knew if I got out the car, I was going to get arrested, so I kind of looked out the window, and I just gave him a smile, and I hit the gas. I see him like standing there, hands on his hips, and I come around the corner, and I throw the pills, and I get on the freeway, and I call my daughter's mom, like, I'm about to get arrested. And she's like, why, what's going on? I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, there's about 18 police cars behind me. And she's like, what do you got in the car? I'm like, nothing, I threw it. She's like, pull over. So of course, you know, I let him on a 7-mile high-speed chase, swerving at him, and finally I got to this point where I'm like, you know what, my blunt's done, put it out a little bit, and then I hit the blinker. I'm like 2 lanes over, blink over, and then I pull over underneath this bridge, and the police, they do the, driver, stick your hands out the window.
Yep.
Had my phone in my hand, they're like, what's in your hands? So I threw my phone, It like exploded on the ground, and they had me take 10 steps back, but by the 3rd step, they're whooping me, you know, I got whooped pretty good, and looking back, I'm like, I deserved it, you know, I'm trying to swerve them off the road, I would have whooped me too. And I got arrested, and they brought me to Eden Prairie, and this is my first adult charge, so I didn't really know how the laws went, and they're like, you gotta take a blood test or a pee test, and I'm high on ecstasy. The last thing I want to do is have a needle stuck into me, so I peed in the cup. You know, they brought me down to Hennepin County, and I think in a way that peeing in the cup kind of, I don't know, helped prolong things, because my 36-hour probable cause hold expired. 12 o'clock, 36 hours later, they said, Meline, roll it up. I said, well, roll it up, what you mean? They're like, roll it up, you're going home. I ain't gonna argue, so I rolled up my little mat and got released, and I walked out of Hennepin County, and I just remember thinking, you know, I didn't get charged. Cool. And I went right back to doing the same things I was doing, but I didn't realize in Minnesota they can charge you after the fact. So 8 months goes by, and I come home one day, and I have on the counter this packet, you know, you're being charged by the state of Minnesota for fleeing police in a motor vehicle, driving with undue care, DWI, like all these charges, like 10 different charges. And I called multiple attorneys, found one that, was reasonably priced, and he met with him and he said, I think the state, would be okay with you plead guilty to the fleeing police in a motor vehicle, plead guilty to the DWI, and then they'll drop the other charges, they'll put you on probation for 3 years, your felony will be on a stay of imposition. So to me that sounded good, 3 years, no longer a felon, not a lot of consequences. And, by not having consequences, it didn't feel like I was in trouble.
Right.
So kept doing what I was doing, except for now I have a PO, so now I have to go see the PO, pee in the cup, and I kept getting violated, Violated for smoking weed, doing drugs, did those little cognitive skill classes, got kicked out of there, and finally I got tired of getting violated. And back in 2008, the DEA wasn't watching doctors like they're watching them now, so I started doctor shopping. I had 4 different clinics in Minneapolis that I could go there and get pretty much prescribed any narcotic I wanted, because I looked up what the cause and effects are, and I'd go in there with those diagnoses of, I have panic disorder, which I've always had anxiety and panic, but I just exaggerated a little.
Right.
So now I'm getting prescribed Xanax, Klonopin, Valium, promethazine, codeine, oxys, so I quit doing street dope and I moved over to doctor dope. And the problem with that is, one of those drugs, Xanax, causes me to black out. And one day I thought my mom stole money from me. And, my mom, she would never steal. She loves me. If I needed money, I could have probably worked for it, and she would have just gave it to me, or if I did something for it, where I thought she took my money because I was keeping money at her house, and I got super angry, and I went there, and she came outside, and she could see visibly that something was wrong, so she said, smoke a cigarette, I'll help you look for what you're missing. And I don't know about you if you've ever been blacked out, but when someone tells you they're going to help you look for what's missing, it just doesn't make sense in your head. So I got even more mad, and, I'm out there smoking a cigarette, and next thing I know, it's kind of like a movie, slow motion. I see police coming from this way, police coming from that way, and they're running up on the yard, got their guns out, and they just kept saying, get on the ground, and I'm yelling, kill me. Kill me. I had my hands in my pockets, kind of trying to intimidate them, and who are you intimidating? It's the police. They got gonna shoot. So, and then I heard them say they're gonna tase me, and I'd been tased before, and it's not a nice feeling. So I got on the ground, put my hands behind my back, and they put me in cuffs, and they were bringing me to the squad car. And I looked over, and I seen my mom in the other squad car. And then it made sense. She called the police on me. And to me, that was betrayal. I started kicking the window and started yelling out the window, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And got brought to Hennepin County, and now I'm on probation. So, you get the held without bond. So there ain't no getting out till you finally go to court and all that. And when I got to jail, I'm blacked out, tried to fight the COs there, got put in the hole, and, 4 days later, I started, getting back to normal, or what I thought was normal, you know, and I'm reading the criminal complaint, and it broke my heart, because I seen what my mom said. She said, I feared for my life. I know Micah is dangerous, and I could tell he's on something, but I don't want him to be arrested. I want you to get him help. Problem is the state of Minnesota. They want me to be arrested, so they charge me. For that, I'm charged with terroristic threats, obstruction of justice, which is another felony. Same attorney on that case. He said, we could get another stay of imposition. They'll extend your probation another year. So another 2 years from now, you'll get off probation. And You'll no longer be a felon. And at that point, I thought, okay, I can do this. So I pled guilty. Now I'm just smoking weed because I said I don't care. And violated a couple more times, went to a couple more treatments, and finally the last violation happened, and basically they said, we can extend you again, or you can go execute the last 8 months. So at that point, I'm tired of going in and out of jail, so I was like, just execute me, So I went out to the Hennepin County Workhouse out in Plymouth. I did 8 months there. When I got out of the workhouse, I had another opportunity to truly be free. Now I'm not a felon. I'm 21, I think, years old, and thought I knew better. And I grew up kind of on the Minneapolis side of the cities, and we always looked at St. Paul like that's the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to move to St. Paul because this will be a change. I moved over, there's a street called George Street, kind of by Robert, and I moved there, and I went to the little store there, and the guy in the store said, hey, you need any glass roses? Well, for people that don't know, a glass rose is a meth pipe, it comes with a little fake rose inside, and I said, yeah, let me get 10 of them. Had no intention of smoking meth again, but here I am buying 10 pipes, and go back to the house that I was renting from, and the person renting before me came back to get some of her things, and when you're in addiction, you can look at people and say what kind of dope they do, and I could look at her and say, oh, she smokes meth. Next thing you know, we're talking, we're smoking, and a couple weeks later she said, why don't you come out to Wisconsin with me? There's money out here. And so I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, I put some money up, I move out there, I don't even have to touch the dope, she touches it, moves it, and I just protect it. So moved out there, and Wisconsin, the part of Wisconsin I lived in was Ashland, so up North Shore, little tiny town you could drive through in 3 minutes. Everybody knows everybody type of deal, and problem with that is, I don't look like I'm from around there, and I just remember thinking, this is an interesting situation. I'm 23, thought I was big stuff, and she started having weirdos come over, like people that just were odd. And one day I got super paranoid, and I looked up the laws of Wisconsin. And I'll tell you this, after looking those laws up, you don't want to get caught in Wisconsin with large amounts of meth.
Right, yeah.
So, got paranoid. I ended up coming back to Minnesota, and when I got back to Minnesota now, I just thought, I'm going to have other people sell my drugs. And from that, a situation happened, and someone got the drugs taken, and they weren't going to get the money, so I decided I'm going to handle this. Found out the address, and I went and kicked down the door, and there was 3 people in the house, and we laid them down, and they didn't have the dope, they didn't have the money, but they had guns, so we took their guns. Didn't think, back then that people out stealing dope were going to call the police, so I didn't wear a mask. I wanted you to see who I was, and looking back, maybe I should have worn a mask. Because they called the police. Police came, and as we were leaving, we seen all the squad cars flying by, and we drove and we got away at that moment, so didn't think anything of it. And a couple days later, I was leaving to go fishing with a buddy, and basically we left. Next thing I know, the task force was taking our car down. Every car around me turned into the police. There's this little Toyota Prius, those little electric hybrid things. Yeah. It jumps the curbs, flips its visors down, like, boo-doo, boo-doo. I was like, bro, that's a Prius. I ain't never seen the police in Priuses.
No kidding.
So, at that point, I'm like, man, I'm cooked. Yeah. They pull me out the car. They have the dog barking in my face. And I just, I've been arrested now, it's like 26 times, so I already know, I'm going to cuss you out until you tell me I'm under arrest. Well, I'm on the ground on the street, and they're reading me my rights from a little card. I'm like, man, y'all took all the fun out of this. So I'm like, I got mental health problems. You got to bring me downtown. I ain't talking to none of y'all. I want my attorney. You know, and they brought me downtown, and my 36-hour hold expired. So I'm on the button. Hey, it's 12 o'clock. You got to let me out. Hey, it's 1 o'clock. You holding me hostage.
Yeah.
CO comes on like, oh, we're just waiting for some paperwork to come up. And so I went back to my cell, laid down, put my little head up, and a couple hours later, you know, they brought some papers that said your 36 has been extended to 72. So I already know from that point they have something, because that means investigators are trying to build a case. And
Right.
a couple hours later, I was charged. I was charged with 3 counts of first-degree aggravated robbery and 1 count of prohibited person with a firearm. And when I got arrested, they didn't find a gun on me, so I know they went and raided my mother's house. At that point, I knew it was going to be a situation. You know, I'm looking at 15 years. At this point, I'm 23 years old, and I'm like, man, my life's about to change. You know. Attorney came in, he talked about different scenarios, how we're going to fight the case, because you can't go into court and say, well, someone took drugs from you, so you went to get them back.
Right.
You know, and first-degree aggravated robbery just doesn't sound good. You know, you went into an occupied dwelling of people that are innocent victims, and you had a gun. So we kept pushing the case out, asking for different kind of assessments. I applied at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, trying to do the get out of jail free card. They denied me. I was like, oh, shoot, there goes everything, you know. And you know, finally my attorney came back and he said, you know, we got the discovery, the BCA has your DNA from the scene of the crime. I cut myself, and you know, there's fingerprints on the gun, and he's like, we're going to lose. And I'm like, what do you mean we're going to lose? Like, you're my attorney. Like, you got to have some kind of better thing than that. And he said, well, go with the public defender. Fire me. And when I met with my public defender, and man, that guy, he was better than my paid attorney. You know, he actually fought for the case. Newer guy, you know, he wanted to kind of prove his point. And, you know, he went in and we went to a couple court dates, and finally they said, you know, plead guilty to the gun. We'll drop the burglary, because now it went from aggravated robbery just down to burglary. And so I pled guilty to the gun charge. You know, I was sentenced to 60 months. September of 2013, I went to St. Cloud prison. When I got to prison, I'm young. I thought I was, at that point, earning my stripes, or whatever you want to call it. Like, oh, I'm in prison. I don't care. I'll do this time. I'll do this. Because in Minnesota, you know, you do 2/3 of your time. So I'm like, 40 months, I could do that.
Right.
I met my caseworker, and he's like, you're an idiot. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, why don't you apply for boot camp? And I'm like, well, if I do boot camp, then I'll get out, and I'll do a year ISR, and I'm not doing that. And he's like, most likely, I'm going to recommend that you do ISR anyways for at least 6 months. So you might as well try to do boot camp. And I applied and got accepted, and went from St. Cloud to the Moose Lake prison, and then Moose Lake to Willow River. And when I was in Willow River, I did what I always did in life. I figured out the easiest way out of it without having to do the work. So I had all these different profiles. I didn't have to run. I didn't have to do the step tape. I didn't have to do work crew, because I became a barber. And it was just like, in my life, I always figured out ways to skirt the system. Looking back, I don't think that really helped me, because, you know, I gained some life skills in boot camp, you know, certain things. But when I got out, I got on ISR, and for people that don't know, that's intensive supervised release. I had 4 different parole agents. But at that point, you know, I was doing all the things I needed to. I was working a full-time job. I was volunteering. I was going to meetings. But I was only doing those things just to make them happy. I wasn't really doing them for myself to change my life. And when I got off ISR, I had a new parole agent, and, you know, his name was Levi, and he gave me too much freedom. You know, you're working, you're going to meetings, we'll just have you come in once a month, 15 minutes, not going to UA you, you know, and I heard that, and then my mind took over. Well, he's not going to UA me. I could sell drugs again. Yeah, that lasts for 15 seconds, you know.
Yeah.
I had some put it on the scale, heard the little chink chink, and now I'm like, maybe I could just dust a little on the table and crush it up.
Yeah.
Then that turned into, well, I just got to quit 72 hours before I go in. That lasts one time. Then it comes with the excuses. Oh, I can't come today. My girl crashed the car. My girl has the car. My girl popped the tire. And he's like, you got a bad girl and a bad car. You need to get rid of both. So, you know, and I don't know about you, but I could never ask for help. You know, like maybe if I would have just said, hey, I'm struggling. I relapsed. I need help. But now it turned into catch me when you catch me.
Right.
So now I'm on the run, you know, and that catch me when you catch me attitude, it got me in trouble because I went into a psychosis. I literally lost my mind. One day I was driving, and as I was driving, every car around me, the person driving looked like the Grim Reaper. You know, black hood, no face. And I just remember as I'm driving, I'm looking over at everybody's car, probably looking super sketchy.
Right.
Looking over, trying to see everybody driving, and I just remember yelling out later that night after driving around for like 4 hours, you're not going to get me, I'm going to get myself. And I'm on Highway 62 in Edina. There's a bridge called Tracy Avenue. And I remember as I passed underneath that bridge, I said, I'm going to kill myself. I hit the gas. A couple bridges later, there was, you know, those pillars on the bridge, and then there's like a guardrail. So I hit the gas, I looked down, I'm going 100, I steered over towards the bridge, and I hit the embankment, flipped, rolled my car, it came to a stop. And then I remember sitting there kind of upside down, and, you know, I'm like, am I dead?
Right.
Moved my hands, moved my feet, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm alive. I gotta hide this dope. So I hid the dope, put it in my boxers, flipped the boxers over because I know when they search you, you know, they don't stick their hand in. So they.
Yeah.
A couple minutes later, the police are breaking the windows of the car because they thought I was dead. They're pulling me out. Hey, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I was just a little tired. Got in a fight with my girlfriend, and I was just trying to go home. I worked today. Did the DWI test. And before all this happened, I popped a handful of Xanax, just trying to calm down.
Chill out, yeah.
But I think in a way it kind of evened me out because now I was able to pass the DWI test. They're like, hey, we got to get you off the road. We're going to tow your car. Is there somewhere we can bring you? And I was like, yeah, there's a Super America right up the road. Drop me off there. The state trooper comes, opens up the back door of her car, and I'm like, this is a setup. Like, I'm about to get in the police car. So I get in, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I just willingly got in the police car. Like, what's going on? She pulls up to the Super America, opens the door, and says, you know, be safe. I get out, I walk over to the curb, I call her a ride, and, you know, most people would be like, oh, I need to stop doing drugs. Well, I was like, I need to get high.
Great.
So I got high, and a couple more weeks went by, and my PO is trying to get a hold of me, you know, because now a week before that happened, I crashed a car, totaled it. So that's police contact. 2 weeks later, I crashed another car. Obviously, that's not a good sign if it's supposedly you're sober.
Right.
And my roommate answered the phone one day, and she's like, your PO called. He wants you to come see him. And all throughout my life, when I got tired and I was like, I just need to quit doing drugs for a minute, I was okay with getting arrested. You know? So I went in and I met with him, and at this point I'm 128 pounds. Never really picked my face apart. She's like, we gotta do something. You look terrible. So she put on makeup on my face. It's 110 degrees out. I went and bought some fake pee from the little smoke shop. And I was like, let me borrow your baby. You know, because maybe if I bring the baby in, you know, it'll be okay. So here I am, 128 pounds, makeup dripping down my face. I'm walking in with this baby that's not mine. I'm flailing. And I'm like, I always knew, like, there was certain periods where I knew I shouldn't be in public. That was one of those days.
Yeah.
But I walk in flailing, and he looks at me, and he's like, so I think we're going to UA you today. And here I am, happy-go-lucky. Okay. So we walk over to the bathroom. I set the baby down. He gives me the cup. I had the fake pee in my pants, and I'd been up for about 2 weeks, and I started to fall out with the cup. Drop the fake pee bottle. It hits the rim of the toilet. Dum, dum. I just remember thinking, I'm cooked. I look back like this, and I'm like, so I'm going today, aren't I? And he's like, well, calm down. Let's get a baseline. I'm going to go get a new cup. You know, and I'm thinking, yeah, you're going to get the sheriffs that are outside. It's cool.
Yeah.
But he came back in, gave me the cup. I peed in it. And we went back to his office and we were talking. And he said, you know, Mike, I know you've been getting high. He said, I know for a while you were. But I was really hoping with you would just ask for help. He's like, there's something about you that's different than all the other people on my caseload. I see something in you that I don't see a lot. And I want to give you a chance. I want you to change, you know. And, you know, he mentioned, he's like, I can't really tell you legally that if you're only smoking weed, you know, I'll just send you to treatment. But you keep smoking meth, of course, I got to send you back to prison.
Right.
So I started smoking weed again, you know. Back when I started smoking, it had been like 4 years since I'd smoked, and now they have all those fancy wax and all that stuff. But that stuff messed me up where it got me off of meth for a while, and I kept going in, dropping dirties, and finally he seen that it was only weed in my system, and he said, now let's get you into treatment, you know. And there was always one treatment I said I would never go to. And that treatment was Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge.
Yeah.
Reason I never wanted to go there is because people go there and they just disappear because they change their life. You know, growing up, my parents brought me to church. Things happened in my life where I thought God was to blame, and you know, I always went in. I went in and I said, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in this God. You know, if God loves me, what has He done for me? Well, at that point, I didn't see all the things He did for my life.
Right.
And that was the only place I circled on the assessment. There was a lady in admissions. Her name was Miss Polly, and she was like a debt collector. She called me morning, afternoon, night. I swear she even called me like when it wasn't even business hours.
Yeah.
And finally I answered the phone and I said, why do you keep calling me so much? She's like, just come in and talk to me.
Yeah.
So I drove there, went back to her office. She pointed at the chair and she said, sit down and shut up. I said, excuse me? She said, sit down, shut up, because you talk a lot. But let me tell you my story. She told me her story of her life. And when she got done, I asked her, I said, why are you telling me this? Your job's just to fill a bed. She said, I'm telling you my story because I want you to see what this program did for my life and what it can do for yours. At that point, you know, I had all these mental health diagnoses. They needed all these records. I'm like, I don't know how to do none of that. She said, well, here, we're going to fill out the ROIs. You're going to get in your car. You're going to call me. I'm going to talk to you all the way to the hospital. You can go get those records. Come back. And I did that, and, you know, she got it all going and, you know, set up different intake dates. I don't know if you ever went to treatment in the outside, you know, it's you may have set the date for July 26th, but then all of a sudden things come up.
Right.
Oh, I gotta clean out my storage unit, or my dog has to go to the vet.
Yeah.
First, I ain't got no storage unit, I ain't got no dog. Everyone stole all my stuff. But then finally, it's December of 2016, and it was right before Christmas, and she called me. She said, Micah, I want to get you in before the end of the year. And I was like, why? She was like, because I feel like if you wait till next year, you're not going to make it. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'll just reset the date. She's like, no, I feel like something would happen to you. Like, you're not going to make it. December 31st, 2016, she was like, it's a Saturday. I have a guy, his name's Tony Fondy. He'll come in, he'll do your intake on a Saturday. And I was like, man, here's this dude that wants to come in on a day that he's not supposed to work to do my intake.
Right.
Saturday comes, he calls me, hey, just calling to see what time you're going to be here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on my way. I'm still laying in bed. Couple hours go by, hey, just calling to check in. Another hour goes by and he's like, hey, I got this family hockey game that I'm planning on going on. I just want to know if I need to cancel my family or not. And for some reason that hit me, like, man, this guy, he's willing to cancel plans with his family to get me in, so I better go.
Yeah.
Drove down there, walk up to the front of the doors, and I get there, hand him my little pipe. Oh, I guess I don't need this anymore.
Right.
He did my intake, and, December 31st, 2016, started our short-term program. February 9th, 2017, I got kicked out of the short-term program. They got me into outpatient, had a counselor there. She's like, what's going to be different this time? She's like, you've done treatment 10 different times. What's going to be different? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, have you ever done faith-based work? And my excuse for everything was, I don't believe in God. Mm-hmm. She said, what do you got to lose? And I like to think things out, and kind of made sense. I don't think my life's going to get worse by doing this Jesus packet, so
Right.
I started doing the faith-based work, and I just remember seeing things in there that I never thought about before, seeing biblical principles applied to addiction, and I started doing really well, but then I got to this point I was scared. What does sobriety look like forever? I can get clean. To me, there was always a difference. Clean is like making the PO happy. Sober means like living this way for the rest of my life. So I don't know, I'm pretty good at self-sabotage, so I thought, maybe I just smoke weed again and everything would be okay. Well, that relapse, I didn't realize that I had a big influence on people around me. So when I started smoking weed, 8 other people did in my group, and one guy overdosed on heroin that night. And that was kind of a point where I was like, man, now my choices are affecting other people, and had to meet with my PO and my counselor, and he's like, what do you want to do, Micah? You're getting kicked out of outpatient. And I was like, I'll just go back to short term. This time I won't get kicked out because this or that. And she said, he needs long term. I was like, hold on, lady. Like, I was cool with the little Bible packet. Now you're talking about a year long of Jesus. And she said the same thing. What do you have to lose? June 26, 2017, I walked through the doors of the long-term program in Minneapolis. I had 2 garbage bags full of clothes. I had fear, anxiety, anger. I didn't think my life was going to change. I thought I'd get through this program, be off parole, and do all the same things over again. But throughout that program, I got in trouble a lot. I was on restriction for 8 months that I was there, had what they call setback, or us clients called them setbacks. I look back now and those are growth opportunities. When I graduated the program, I started working here. I was an intern, then I moved over to the short-term program. We licensed with the DHS, so they flagged me. Didn't know what I was going to do. Did a thing they call a set-aside. 4 days later, I was approved, which is unheard of. Started working in long-term. Was made charge staff, so I kind of ran the shift of the house that I lived at. And then I moved departments to prevention. Got to go to schools every single day, talking to younger people. And I was made a supervisor there, and COVID happened. At that point, I decided I don't want to sit in front of a camera because I can't sit there for 8 hours. I got twitchy legs.
Yeah.
So I quit, not having a plan, and the senior vice president of marketing said, Micah, what can I do to keep you? She gave me a job in outreach. Every day I drove around the state of Minnesota picking people up. I was able to bring 320 clients in that year.
Wow.
That's 320 people that had a chance, the same chance that I did. Getting to share my story on the drive, encourage them, and After that, I was promoted to the position I am now. Took over with 4 counties, Scott, Dakota, Washington, Carver. In that year, was able to increase intakes. Was then given all of the DOC, so Department of Corrections were now my kind of area. And throughout that time, it's just, I've come to a place where I'm like, this is my life, I get to show people in the same positions that I was going into these facilities that, hey, I was here 6-7 years ago. I had no, at that time, what I thought purpose. And now I get to use my story and really, while I was in the program, I turned away from all my sin. And, my life was completely different.
Right.
Been working at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge for 6 years. I've gotten to see a lot of clients come through our programs. A lot of them graduated. A couple years later, they became my friend. And, I never thought I'd get to the point that I'm at today. Recently, I met this pretty amazing woman and started dating, and we just realized that, hey, God ordained this. Let's get married. So, been married for a couple months now. Got married January 19th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I truly feel, that's what God, this is the woman God made for me.
Yeah.
And now we get to do things together. We get to glorify Him, and we just look forward to the future. So
Amazing.
That's kind of my story, the long version. So.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You have an just incredible. I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing all of that. Trying to think back of the questions. You pretty much answered everything that, I would have asked you. It's amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's the best part about my job is being able to bring hope to people.
Right.
Because there was different areas in my life that I didn't feel like I had hope. Now I get to work with not only clients, I get to work with family members. I get to see the restoration. There's still parts of my life that I haven't got the restoration, but that's where trust in the Lord comes in and understanding that no matter what happens, it's His plan.
Right.
Restoration doesn't look the same for everybody. And getting to that point of realizing that, someday I might not have a relationship with my daughter, but the best thing that I can do is every day strive to be better. And
right.
When and if that time comes, I'll be in the best position to be able to be that support for her. Being able to support my wife, being able to support my family. My dad's going through health concerns, so being able to be there for them like they were there for me. So, that's my life in a little period of time.
Yeah, that's a lot. What would you say to someone who is struggling right now? And
I'd say, the hardest struggles that you had while using will seem easy when you're in recovery. Those times when you're, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but you were able to get through it. If you can apply that to recovery, it's hard at first.
Right.
It's not an easy thing, that those intrusive thoughts of I can't do this. So it's just easier just to get high. It's just this and that, But it's when you start doing the right thing and you start putting yourself in situations, putting good people around your life that'll tell you the things you don't necessarily want to hear.
Right.
It does get easier. Life's worth living.
Yeah.
I didn't think that years ago. I thought, what's my life worth? Well, I get to see the fruits of that now, and I get to hear years later of, Micah, you may not realize this, but what you said to me in the car, that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And those words that I always tell everybody, because I truly believe this, is you matter. I think a lot of people that have gone through addiction is we get to that place where we don't think we matter. What is our life worth? I have nothing good going for me, but there is a lot of good that can come. So
absolutely.
I think that's what I always tell people is you matter.
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you, being so vulnerable and sharing your story. And yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey of strength and recovery. If you found this episode meaningful, please consider subscribing to The Pure Perspective to stay updated on our upcoming episodes. Your support means the world to us, and by sharing these stories, you're helping to spread hope and resilience to those who may need it most. Remember, you're not alone on your journey, and together we can make a difference. Subscribe now, and let's keep moving forward one story at a time.